Hi guys, Joseph here once again from Jouleconcepts. How is everything with you guys? All right. In the previous video, I uploaded a video for my student where I was explaining an interior scene, how to create the floor, wooden floor. So in this video, we're going to be looking at how to create this leather texture, which you can see the detail from when we have a close-up shot and then you have other views. So, but then the purpose of this video is just to explain to you guys how I would create this kind of a leather texture. If you look really closely, you have the leather pattern, then you also have some scratches that are going on. Then if you also look at some parts of it, you notice that there are some parts which looks more worn out, and these are everything we're going to be looking at in this video. So if you are excited to watch this video, please just hop on into the video and learn with me. So let's quickly look at this model and work on it. So what I'm going to do is to download a Chesterfield chair. It's just for me to illustrate the new set of textures that I wanted to talk about. So this first video, I'm going to be talking about leather texture, how you create your leather, one-off leather, so to say. And you're going to see the technique I'm going to use in doing this. Then after this video, I'm going to upload another video and share another video, which I'm going to be talking about how to create that velvet kind of material. But I'm going to be taking a few of the technique from this video and applying it in the other video. So the other video, the next video won't be as detailed as I'm going to be explaining here. All right, so let's just get to it. So there is something I've done here. If you go into my setting, I've gone into the scene. By the way, I'm using a low resolution just for test purpose. I'm going into my scene and I have overridden my material. And the reason why I'm overriding this material is because I do not want to have to calculate all these other textures. I really want to optimize my rendering. I want to reduce timing, rendering time. So I'm putting on material for all these objects so that I can focus on this. All right. So what that means now, if I start my interactive rendering, you're going to see that everything is just white and I just have everything white. So the thing now is if I'm to create a new material and to apply it to this guy, it will still be white. All right. But there is a way I'm going to exclude a particular material from or a particular object from being overridden by this um, material override that I've added. All right, so let me just illustrate that. So if I come in and I hit M my keyboard to take me to my material, then I can just bring up one material. So let's just come here. Um, just want to pick a material that is not being used. Okay, so I can pick this. I can just call this my um, sofa mat. Sofa mat. So for this sofa mat, I'm going to show you now. I'm going to make this a Corona material, Corona legacy material. So once I make that Corona legacy material, so I want to apply that to this. So if I select this object, and this object is grouped, I know that. So I just want to add it to this cushion part. So I'll click on the group and open the group so that it will allow me to select this. You can see that these ones are different objects. So I want to select this, select the material, and I'm going to apply to select it. So now this material has been applied to this selected object, so I can close the group now. So once this is applied, you notice nothing happens. If I come to this material and change the color to anything I want, the color will change in viewport, but it's not reflecting here. And the reason is because override is affecting everything. So what I'm doing is to explain how to exclude that object from being overridden by the material override. I just go to my scene in my render setting, then come to this place where you have your um, material override. I've activated that. And you see here, it says you have 3 objects excluded. The reason why we have 3 objects is because I already excluded some cutting materials there. So that's why, so that lights can come in through. So that's why you are seeing that. So I want to now add this into excluding this. So if I click on the plus, once I click on this plus, you notice it adds that. And the reason why it adds it automatically is because this object is selected. If it wasn't selected, I would have to come and select it. So because the object was still selected before I click on this plus, it added this object, and now we have 5 objects. You can now see that we now have this color playing out. All right. So away from that, we can now start looking at setting up this material. So I'm going to be using a different a different way of layering this material. I'm not going to be using this compact method. I'm going to be using the slate so you understand how to work with the slate. So the difference is just that for this compact, you work with the material set and just you use button to add in stuff. Just what you're doing, just clicking button to add maps and changing values here. But for the slate material, make do with node-based material system. So that means you're adding node and linking node, more of creating a wire between one node to another node. Is one of the same thing. It's different. It's the same stuff. It's just that most texture artists, the advanced texture artists that want to really go into detailing of creating a detailed texture tend to work more with the slates or the node-based material system, and which is what we're going to be using here. So if I click on this and I click on slate material, we're going to have this material set here. All right. So now we just need to look for the scene material so that we can add that into this project. You can see this is the sofa material I'm working on. So I just scroll here to go into the scene material. So I will drag the scene material into this place. So before I even do that, I already have a material set. So I'll just create a new view by right clicking here, clicking on new view. So I have, it tells me to give it a name, I'll just leave it as view 2. So this is just an empty space. So I'll drag this material set into this place, and it's asking me whether I want to make it instance or copy. Yeah, I'm going to make an instance so that by the time I'm modifying this, it automatically affect that. So I just click on OK, making it instance. So you can see that I can always go back to my view 1 and I still have this, and I can go back to my view 2. So you can see that it's not the interface is not that hard. So the other thing here is that you have your material sets, just like in the compact where you click on that button and it brings you the material maps controller and the same material. So it's just one of the same thing here. Then you are familiar with these buttons up here. You can see you also have that in the slate. Then you now have another panel which is called the material parameter editor, which once you select an object or you double click on an object, it gives me the property of that selected node which I can apply to. So now, since we've already added this object to the added this material to the sofa, and we want to start creating our material set. So what we want to do is the first one, like I said, we want to start with the um, leather material set. So for me to bring in the bitmap, you have to come to your map, you go to your Corona, and then you bring in Corona bitmap, right? And that's a long process. You can also do that right here by just right clicking. So if you right click, you go to your map, you go to your Corona, and you go to your Corona bitmap. It's going to load into this place so you can pick. So I want to go into my downloads. Yeah, that's where I have this leather. So if I come here, I have a leather set. So I'm going to bring in this color, and I'm going to be using the um, normal map tool, then also the glossiness, which is the roughness. So remember all this, I'll just quickly bring them out. So select this and open, and that opens this diffuse. I'm going to scroll up. So I can double click on this thumbnail to give me an enlarged view of the thumbnail, and I can double click it again to go back, and this just gives me the name. So if I want to have a node selected, just double click on it. You're going to have this dash line around it, and it gives you the property of that node. So I can also pan around here. So if I want to go to the property of this, just double click on the name set. It's going to give you the property of this node. All right. So now we have this. I want to hold down Shift and drag to duplicate that. And I'm going to double click here so I can go and change the map. So I'll load map. I want to bring in the bump. All right, so we have two bumps. We have one for OpenGL. We have one for DX, DirectX. So you can see this GL is created for OpenGL, and while the DX is created for the DirectX. So I'm going to use the DirectX because I'm using my graphics. I'm using GPU on my system, so I'm just going to click on open, and that will open the map. So I'm going to still drag one more and double click here so that I can go into the settings and load this map and bring in the roughness. All right, so I'll just bring in the roughness. So we have the roughness, we have the color. So first off, let's bring the color into the diffuse color, and automatically that quickly changes. All right, so you see that changes up here. So once that is done, I might also need to zoom into this so that I can see the detail. All right, so I'll just come here, hit C on my keyboard. Just select something here, just hit C on my keyboard. I can go to the close-up shot that I've created. So it's going to give me this render. Then I can bring the exposure up. Let's make it 1. All right, so that's fine. So you see this, we don't get to see the pattern now. You can see we don't get to see those leather pattern yet. But let's just quickly do everything that we need. So we have this glossiness. And for the glossiness, I'm going to drag that into my reflection glossy. You can see we have the reflection color and reflection glossy. And that's what I want to drag that into. Once I drag, you're going to see different thing here. But then we have to introduce reflection into this material. So if I double click on this material, we'll come to the reflection value, bring that to 1. You notice that because we added this into the color, it has that map here. And the same thing goes into this place. Once we add this here, it adds the map into the glossiness. And right off the bat, you can see the difference, what is happening. And now we have a lot of things to work on here. First thing is you notice that the map is really large. Okay, the map is large, and also the map is inverted. Remember, I told you about roughness and glossiness relationship. They are inverse of one another. So what I need to do is I need to look for a way to invert this. So if I right click here and I come here to map, or to map, or go to the corona map, you have your color correct. Corona color correct. So I double click here, you notice what we have in this color correct node. So let's bring this guy into this section. So once we put that in, that is going to put this on top of this. So what we want to do is we want to invert the color. Once we invert the color, it changes, and you can see that we're going to have that glossy effect. And that is, you can already see what's happening right here. You're seeing the glossy effect. So we can also now start changing the reflection mode by changing this gamma value. So if I bring the gamma value to 2, you see the difference is really glossy. You can see it's really shiny and all that. So just using this value to change, it will give you a different feel, so to say. All right, so I'm going to stop here. I'm going to just let this be there. Then let's go to our normal map. So for the normal map, I'm going to right click, go to my map, Corona, and I want to bring in my normal Corona normal. So I'm going to put the Corona normal, I'm going to put this map into the normal of the Corona normal, while I'll put this guy and load that into the bump section. And as soon as I do that, we're going to see something different. And at first, this is what we're going to have. And the reason is because there is a setting I need to turn on. And so by default, I don't know, for some reason, 3ds Max does not add this gamma input, and it's giving us a warning that most times when you bring in your normal map, it's probably inverted, it's not brought in correctly. So you might want to enable. So that's what this is saying. See that the input image is probably loaded with incorrect gamma. Normal map texture must be loaded with gamma overriding to 1, or add gamma option must be checked. So we just click on this. It checks that, and then it's going to remap it correctly. And you can see we have that. And you're beginning to see the bump a little bit coming up. But now this is not bad, but then the only issue I have with this is just that the texture is quite light, so we need to reduce the texture, right? So how do we do that? So I'm going to go back to this guy right here. So if I select this object, I'm going to open the group once again and select this one that we added that material. So I'm going to add my UVW map to it. UVW. It's going to add the UVW map to it. I'm going to make it box. So we have this material set. So let's look at what it gives us. You can see that it has changed the leather size. And from here, you can decide to say whether you like that leather size or you want to still modify this. I'm thinking I should still reduce this size, the fill, to still large. So if I come in and I hit C again to go to the large size, so we can come into a more zoomed out view. Then from here, we can go into this and select the gizmo. So while we're doing this, so that we can see this gizmo. So let's see if we go back, we can see while we're in that close up. So okay, so we can actually select this while we're here. So once we select the gizmo, we click on scale. Then we can start scaling this down a little bit. So while scaling this, it's going to reduce the pattern, the texture pattern, till you are satisfied with what you have. You can see that this is beginning to reduce the pattern. If you feel that you still need it more, to still go down, just drag this to the left to reduce that guy, and that will start reducing more. So I'll just look at what I have here and see if that's enough. I think this is enough actually. You can see that the texture is now coming out fine, and see the leather texture everywhere is not bad. All these things are coming out good. And now you might not really see well now because I'm using a very low resolution, right? So by the time I want to do a final rendering, I'm going to up this resolution. So I'm still going at 800 by 450. So it's really low. So if I'm to do a final rendering, I'll be going full HD. All right. So just bear with me while this is going on. So while that is done, I can always still come back into this sofa material and go down to my bump. I can, if I feel I want to increase this, I can increase that. I make this 2. The bump will be more intense, and the leather pattern will even be more detailed. You can see here. But mind you, you need to put into consideration, you need to also determine what you're reaching out for, because the higher you go with the bump, the more it cuts off your reflection. So you can already start to see that the reflection is not as detailed as we had before now, because I multiply this bump value by 2. So you will look at which one works for you. Are you going with a more detailed pattern, or just a little bit while you still get rid of, while you still have your glossiness to it? You can see now I've changed this back to 1, and you see that this is more shiny. You can already see. If I bring this to 0, you will see that you don't have any pattern. See that no pattern is, you're only seeing the line, but you don't really see the pattern. You can see there is no depth to your pattern. You're only seeing lines, more like it's being drawn on this guy. So I'll just take it back to 1. And your reflection is set to 100, and that's that. So from here, if I still feel I want it to be more reflective, I can just go to the color correct and increase the gamma to, let's say, 2.5. And the more white I get, the more reflective it becomes. All right. So we also just need to learn how to trick some things out. And that's just it. So now this is what we have. Okay. This is what we have. So what I want to do next is really, if you are a noob CG artist, just like me some years ago, I would want to stop here and just call it done. Like, we are fine. This is um, the best rendering you would want to look for. Because what are you looking for? You have a pattern, you have a reflection, and it looks perfect just as is. But then this is not realistic because if it's a leather and it has been used over a period of time, there should be some wears and tears. And I hope you get what I'm trying to say. And we also have to put that into consideration. Right. So now that we have this, let's look for a way to incorporate that wear and tear into this setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click this and name this guy out. So we have our sofa material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight everything as this and duplicate this. So I'll hold down shift and duplicate that. And this I'll double click here and call this. So can you see it's given a name? So I'm going to rename that. So the sofa material. So this is going to be sofa mat wear. All right. So let's just call this sofa mat wear. So what I just need to do with this sofa mat wear is first off, let me apply this back to the object. So I'll click here to go out of the UVW. Then because this object is selected, all right. So because it's selected, I can come to this sofa and apply it to the selection. It's going to apply it to the selection and nothing happens because it's just more like the same object. So what I want to do for the sofa wear is I want to brighten up this, and you're going to see why I'm doing that in a moment. So I'm going to bring in my color correction, mark corona color correct. And this color correct, I'm going to put it in between so that it brings this here. So this is what we're going to use to drive that. So we double click this color correct. I'm going to increase this gamma, right? I'm not inverting just like I did here. I'm going to increase the gamma just so I can brighten this up. So I'll make this like 2. If it's not too much, you can see that it brightens that up. So another thing I also want to do for this guy is I'm going to desaturate because this is saturated. So we can just bring this down to like, let's say, minus 0.5. So it desaturates this guy. I think this is too much. So let's just try minus 0.2. It's still a little bit saturated, but not too much. Let's try minus 0.1. I think minus 0.1 will be fine for us because we've already taken this off. We'll also come back here in a bit. So this is one thing I want to do. The second thing I also want to do is that for this option, I don't want this to be this reflective, right? It's looking very reflective and I don't want that. So, and I don't want to take the reflection away totally, entirely, like some other artists will do. They will make this not reflective, but instead, I'm going to make it look a little bit matte, a little bit of reflection, but just still matte. So let's try minus 0.5. If we take this, if we take this to 0, that means it's going to be really matte. So let's just try 0.5. So it's reflection, but not too much. Because if I make it 1, you see what 1 gives me. We have this. So let's just bring it back down. 0.7 is fine. So you can see that there is no reflection whatsoever on the edge. And now this is the tear part or the wear part of this object. So you can see we still keep our bonds. Everything is still, they're still as they are. All right. So now the thing now is, how do I now mix both together? How do I make sure that both of them um, will be mixed together? So what I'm going to do is, first of all, let me go into this color and change this color from pink to a different color, so that at the time we're using color to mix them, you're going to see that. So now we have two texture. We have the here, sorry, we have the wear, and we have the main texture. So how do we mix these two together? So how we're going to do that is by right clicking, going to material, going to corona. There's this corona layer material that we're going to use to mix them together. So if you click on the corona layer material, so the way corona layer material works is that it layers material up and uses a map to mix between them. All right. So when we have that, what we need to do is we need to start bringing this layer up. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to have that dark shade be the base material, then we want this one to pull through. So that's what we're going to do in that case. Sorry. All right. So I'm going to bring this out right here. Sorry, I want to. Okay. So I'm going to bring the main color. So I will just bring this really close. Double click this thumbnail so that I can get this. Then another thing is I'm going to select this and move this up so it's a lot closer. So I'll bring this main color into the base, and that's the there. But then we're not going to see an update because we need to still come to this guy and make sure we add this material to it. So I'll double click on this material, then I'll apply this material to the object. So now we're going to be working with this layered material. Okay. So now that we have this, I'm going to bring this other one and drag this over into my layer one, and that will be added. You can see that the base material is this sofa mat, and then the layer one is the sofa mat one. So if I'm to start this now, this is what you're going to see. It's going to mix both of them together. So now we are now working with a mix of this material. So now the thing now here is, you notice the displacement method is blending all layers, but now this is where the work is. The mask percentage or the value. Right now the mask value is at 100%, meaning it's saying show 100% of this wear material. If I bring this to 0%, it's going to show the base material. So it is the base material that will render out in this. So let's see why. So 100. Oh, sorry. This is not what I'm changing. This is what I'm changing, this material. So if I bring this material to like 0, it's going to be invisible and show this base material at 100%. So if I want to mix that, I say 50%. So showing 50% of this on top of that. All right. But now I'm not going to be using value to change or to mix between this. I'm going to, because I want to show an effect of wear and tear, I'm going to be using this mask. So this mask that I'm going to be using, I need a map to use in masking that, and that map will be added into my mask layer. All right. So how do I do that? I'm going to click on this section right here, right double click here. You notice we only have layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, then there's no map in the mask. And there's nothing here for us to drag into. You can see your mask, we can't drag, so we have to drag it directly into this place. So I'll just click on this. So let me load these marks out first, then I'll use that. So let me just hold down Shift and drag this out to have a copy. I'll move this somewhere here. All right, so I'm going to double click on this mask and go and bring up the layer. So I already created a map that I'm going to use to mask that. So I'll just go into my project folder, and this is a scratch mask that I'm going to use. So you can see the color. So the way this works is that you have your white and you have your black. So anywhere I have the white, I will show through. So let me just show you so you can see what's happening. So right now, what we can do now is we need to load this guy into this layer mask. So let's see if we drag this and place on top of here, it's going to ask us whether we want it to be instance or copy. So we'll make it instance so that changing this value will affect that. So just say okay. And as soon as we do that, look at what happens. We're beginning to see some difference. You can see that. We're seeing the white, the black showing through among the white. And this is why I also chose this white material, and I didn't want to explain that. So anywhere you have white, that means you're seeing more of this layer, and anywhere you have black, you're seeing the base layer. And this is playing out fine, but then it's going the wrong way. I actually want the base layer to be the main layer, while this um, well layer be those black ones, those ones that are showing. So what I need to do is go into this color, and if I go to the outputs, I have option to invert that. So if I invert this output, it's going to invert it to something like this, and we're now going to start to see what is happening here. So you see what's playing out. You can begin to start to see that, okay, so I'm having that leather coming out. You see this where you're having your chair and it's playing through. So if you feel that this white section is kind of too much, you can always remap that and change that. So let me go out of this view because I'm feeling like I have too many whites here. So if I hit my C on my keyboard and select the far one, so I just want to see the way it looks. Then I can quickly change them about. Look at what I need to change so I can change them. All right. So let it just render out a little bit. Then I'll quickly come back to explain and look at what I need to change. Okay, so actually from here we can start working. You can see that we have a lot of these guys and it's really too intense. I want to reduce its impact. So two things I'm going to do is I'm going to first off reduce the coloration of this because I feel it's too much. And then I also want to reduce the occurrence. It feels too much. It's occurring too much. So talking about the color first, this is where we change the color. We come to the color correct of the base layer, then we want to reduce that. But now the thing is, I want to reduce the intensity. It's too bright, all right? This guy is too bright. So if I bring this intensity down to like 1.5 from 1, it will start to begin to reduce that. So it's you can see the difference now. This is getting close to what we had instead of going, let's say 3. So if I say 3 now, you see that it's really white, and this defeats the realism we are looking out for. So while you are working on this, while you are doing this, you also want to put into consideration, is it realistic? All right, so you need to look at that. So let's try 1.2. So it's a lot different. It's different, but not too much. So I think at this point, I may want to go into the next camera, the previous one. Okay, so I think I have to still up this because it's now becoming, I can see the difference actually, but I feel this is too close. So just go to that 1.5 so we can see the difference really between the base and what is scratching out. So once we have that done, the next thing is I want to reduce the instances getting too much. So I'll just come into this place. So you can see this way is adding the mask. So it layers the mask, one mask, one mask way down. So if I double click on this and I go out into my what's it called? Into my output, I can enable my color map. Then this will help me remap that. So if I bring this here, you notice we are having white, that means we are going to be having more of that, and that's not what we want. So we want to have more of the black. So as we start moving this, see what's happening, start reducing this, then I can also add more points by clicking here. So let's even move this here. Let's come, we can move this down to 0 and move this here. So just we can um, push that down, so we're having more of white. So we want to get to have less of white. So I think coming up is what helps us. So I don't also want to have this linear interpolation. I want to have a transition from being this to the white part. So I'll just right click on it, make it curve, and then we can move it here. Just curve that. Right click on this one, also make it preserve corner so that we can have a little bit of curve here, so that we can have more of that pronounced. So bring this here. So you can see what's happening from the map is reduced, and the instance of the whites is reduced, and at the same time you're having a fall off from black to white every instance. So if I come here and I hit C, go to the close-up shot, we're going to have that, you can see coming out here, and you can also see an instance somewhere here. So if you feel that this is really fine, if you feel that you don't also want this, you want it to be more, you know what to do. You have to just go back and tweak this color to change it. I like this, and this is fine for my liking. All right. So once I'm done with that, the next thing is that I also want to do is I also want to add a little bit here and there. All right, where you have all these creases for this button for the Chesterfield rather. I also want to add some wears and tears. So, and again, I can also decide to say I want to stop at this point. This is fine, really. Believe me, once you're able to even get to this point, you are away from being a noob, a noob to at least a better uh, visualizer. All right. So, but then the purpose is to try as much as to look at the references and to look at how to try and match the realistic feel when you look at the proper chart. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to still look for a way to bring in this in these creases. All right. So I'm going to create a new material, and that material, just create a corona material, legacy material, and this legacy material, I'm going to add this material to my object. So this object is still selected, and select the material apply. So we'll have that. So this is the point where I go into my far shot, and now I want to add a map, and that map is called an ambient occlusion map. So if I come here and I go to my maps, so we have Corona AO. You also have another map here, but then we want to bring it from the, I'm still going to come back to this, explaining one map that we're going to be using here. So if we go to the Corona, go to Corona AO. So the way this AO works is it looks at where creases are joined and tries to create a map there. So I'm going to put this inside my column, diffuse column, and this is what I'm going to have. So you see what's happening right now. So now this ambient occlusion is mapped with two different colors, black and white, which you can also add a map to. All right, so just like we did it. But let's just look at how to set this with this color first, and once we are done with this, we can now start adding those maps there. All right, so you see this, everywhere you have this black, that's more of the creases, and every other part is white. But now, you notice that the black is not as much as you would want. So if this is how you want it, fine. But then you can also still remap this and reduce or increase the impact of the black. Then you can also swap them. If I come here and swap, what happens now? Everywhere becomes black and you have your whites coming up. All right. But this is not what I'm looking for. I'm just going to go back to this and swap that. Then we can now use this distance, maximum distance, to tell how much the spread is going to be. All right. So we also have a color spread, but then let's look at this maximum distance. If we bring this maximum distance to like 10, look at what happened. see that, let's try one. So you are seeing what is happening to my white. So my white is becoming really much. All right. So bringing down this, the white is taking dominance over the black. So if we take it like 200, you are going to see that the white is reducing more and the black is beginning to come out everywhere you're supposed to have your ambient occlusion. So let's go to like 1000. So you see what happens. You can see 1000 has really taken out a lot of the white and the black is taking dominance. So you also want to use this to um, map this to look at how your map is going to work for you. So now I'm changing this to 500 to see what happens. So you can see even at this 500, I really don't like it. The black is taking too much. So I'll bring this to like 300 and start mapping this till I'm fine. So 200 seems good, not bad. You can see we have this. Then we can also come here to how I want to map this. So it's mapped outside. So if I bring this to like, how do I explain? So I can change how I want to map this. If I say I want to map out inside, you notice what happens. You have the black and the white is inside. So you can also do for outside and inside. So it's going to map between both outside and inside. And from there, you can start working your way out. So you can see what this is giving me. If I also come here and work on the spread distance. So let's just change this and see what it gives us. If we make the spread distance like 10, okay, so I think it's between 0 and 1. So let's make it 0.7. See that the black is spreading more. So let's say 0.2. The black is spreading less. So we can work with this value and your distance together to give you what you're looking for. So let's make this 100 and then use our spread to spread this. You can see that at 100 centimeter and that we can spread to 0, the white is taking more precedence, and I can now start spreading this by adding a value to spread this. All right, so you have that. So while you're doing this, you also need to tweak these values till you get to have what works well. So let's just keep tweaking these values. So I want to have more of that white, but still have that black poke through. Okay, so we have this and we can still spread this to like 6. Let's see, I think 6 is much. Let's try 5. 4, 5. Okay, so let's try 0.3. So you have this, I think 0.3 is not enough for me. I'll just try 0.42 and I will just leave it at that for now. So you can see what's happening with this value at 0.42. So this is mapping this whole stuff. And you can start, okay, yeah, you like this, and you can just go with that. But then I also want to break out all these detail. They look too uniform. I want to break them off. So for me to break this guy off, I'm also going to still bring up another map, and I'm going to be plugging that map into my AO distance, which at this one that I'm using. So if I double click here, I can go and load this map. So there is a map here that I'm going to my desktop. This I think is in my download. Here, I'm going to use this to map that. So once I bring this in, I'll plug that into my AO distance, and that will break off this. You can start to see what's happening. So it's going to break off this value, so you can see you're now having the white and the black. Like I said, I don't want the black is too much. I want to really limit that black. All right. So what do I need to do? So let me create a copy of this and use this here. So we see what impact this gives us. So you notice we have more of black and less of the white. So you see what this is giving us. Okay, so can you see what this is giving us? So I'm going to go back into this and I'm going to use this to change. So if I come into my output, if I invert, do to invert that and look at what we have, and that doesn't really do anything. But I guess this is what we're going to use to change that. If we go to enable, we can start enabling this and moving this up or down to see the effect we have. We bring this down. Okay, so we have this. Create a node here and use my move tool to move it closer. Just to introduce this, and while I'm doing this, see what's happening. If I bring this down, I have more black than white, so you can see where this are. All right, so let's just change this till we are fine. Then make this bizarre corner, move this here, and do the same thing here. So what I'm just doing here is I'm mapping to see how this will turn out. All right, so you can see what's happening here. All right, so this is not bad. You can see the edges, so the edges are also mapped out. So I like this. I really, really do like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this guy and I want to use this material here into my ambient occlusion. So we have the occluded color and the unoccluded. So the occluded color are the black color, while the unoccluded color are the white color. So meaning I want this white color to be the main layer. I hope you get that. So which is this one. So I'll go to this color here. I'm going to drag this into the unoccluded. All right, it's very important, unoccluded. So you see that we have that. While the occluded will be the other color. You can see the black is showing me here. So I want to turn these guys to the colorized one, which is this. So I will drag from here into the occluded, and now you're going to see automatically what is happening, and this is giving us this filling. All right, so this is fine. All right, so once we are done with this, the next thing is we need to also add every other thing that we added into these guys. Remember, we have normal, so we have to also add the normal here because it's very important. So we'll bring this normal into the bump section so that we have that bump show up. Then remember again, we also have what's it called? The glossiness. So let's just bring the glossiness into reflection glossy. And then I won't see anything until I bring the reflection to 1. So once I bring that to 1, you notice what we have is now glossy and every other thing is fine, just like we have there. So now we have this map. We want to mix this map with what we already had before, and we can actually do that. So that makes it 3 maps that we have. So bring this here. Let me just move them to the side. So I'll bring this here, and this is there. So bring this to this side. Click the thumbnail, and double click this thumbnail. So now we have 3 different maps that we want, or 3 different materials rather, that we want to map together. So we'll go back into this guy and apply that. So that will be applied, and we're back to where we were. You notice this edge doesn't have that map anymore because we're now making use of this layer. So now the good thing here is that for this layer map, there is option for us to also go to layer 2. So I'm going to bring this occluded one into the layer 2. Just drag this here into the layer 2. And now it's going to mix that also into the layer 2. You can see that's mixed. If we bring the layer 2 to 0, these edges will not have that anymore. All right. So we also, once we bring this into the layer 2, we can decide to leave the masking like that, if we so wish. And that is adding another layer of masking, and that might be too much. So what we can do is we can still break this max 2, break it apart by using this same map to break that. So we'll just drag the same guy into max 2. So once we do that, you notice what happens. It breaks that, so you don't get to have straight, what's it called? Straight there, here, or where. The part is weared out, some is still working, another, you can see that. So all these things makes the whole thing look realistic and also good. So for this guy here, I can decide to also add additional map chords here. So I think I should just do that for, so let me hold down shift and drag this here so that I can have his own separate map, bump map. So I think I will do it in this guy, the other guy here. Should I do it on, let's do it on this main object. So if we go into this here and drag this down, I'm almost done. Go into this map. So there's a separate map. If you look at your normal map, there's a separate map here where you have, so this is the normal, sorry, this is not what I want. This, I double click here. There is a separate additional map that we need to also drag this into, which is here. So if I go into this map, I want to bring in Scratch, just Scratch, nothing more, that I'm going to use. And I downloaded some Scratch from Ambient CG again, so you can also check that out. So I'll go into my downloads. Where are you? Downloads. I have my scratches, and this is the scratch that I want to use. Once I bring this scratch out, I'm going to put that scratch in my additional map, and that would be added. So let me just go into it, do a close-up shot so you see that. If I go do a close-up, I'm going to have that scratch. Then we can start adding more detail for the scratch, because right now the scratch is not, you can see a little bit of a scratch. Yeah, you can see that scratch. You can see them here. If I really want it to be intense, I can just come here and intensify it by making it 5, just to show you. Even though I'm not 5 will be too really ridiculous. It's just to show you the scratch. You can see them already showing through, and it's just to create that cord in between the maps, and it can work with that if you so like that. You can see here also. All right. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to reduce this. I don't want it to even be up to 1, so maybe I'll go 0.6, just a little bit of it showing through. And then we have our leather, a weathered out leather, just to create a weathered out leather and make it look a bit realistic. You can see that all the wearing is they're off. So what we can do is we can go back to the other material, which is here, the color correct. I can bring up this gamma, so let's bring it back to 2. We're going to start to see that wearing, and maybe we'll also do the same thing for this guy. Okay, so since it's the same this thing we have, so I think that works. So since it's the same, you should see it play out here. All right, you can see some of the wearing. So this is how I want to do your leather material and really work on it and make it look as nice as possible. So if you feel this was helpful, you can just share, and then see you in the next video.